Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Signal Executive Interview Series. I'm George Seifers with Signal Magazine. Today's executive video is sponsored by MarkLogic Corporation, a data integration and data management company. During this presentation, we are going to discuss some of the challenges with siloed data within the Defense Department and the intelligence community. Our guest today is Eric Putnam, MarkLogic's Executive Account Lead for the intelligence community. Eric has had multiple positions at MarkLogic, and before that, he served as a software engineer and then a technical lead and program manager with the Defense Intelligence Agency. Eric, let me welcome you and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this. We certainly appreciate your time.
Thanks, George. Appreciate the opportunity.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you address the challenges within the data challenges within the intelligence community and the DoD?
Sure. So I really bring a unique vantage point to this discussion today because I've been on both sides of the coin. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, I started within the government, in particular the Defense Intelligence Agency, in about 2007. And at the time, they were really struggling with some complex data issues, data really scattered all throughout the agency. And so I was responsible as an actual developer and engineer at the time to help them overcome some of those complex challenges. Since then, I've transitioned into private industry, kind of at the advice of my mentor within the government. And I've gotten a view of the other side of the coin. I served as a professional services senior consultant here at MarkLogic for several years on familiar projects like over at healthcare.gov, and then eventually navigated my way back to the intelligence community in DoD, and I am now serving, as you said, in a senior executive or senior account executive role. So have a lot of insights to share today and look forward to it.
Great, thank you for that. And if you could describe for us in just a few words the primary struggles within the IC and the DoD, how would you describe that?
Yeah, so I really alluded to this on my opening, but it's a great question. You know, the DoD and the IC have a massive amount of data, structured, unstructured, in all sorts of different formats. And how I like to really slice this problem is data, if you think about it, is really like people. And there's lots of diverse backgrounds, we call that lineage. And there's many different journeys that people have navigated through their life, like data, we call that provenance. And if you think about it, a lot of the modern databases, or the legacy databases really, didn't really account for diversity of data well, and didn't really account for the complexity of data well. And so in the modern database world, you know, we're really trying to aid our customers along in planning for diversity, not having that one size fits all data format model, which sort of plagues the DoD and IC. It's really responsible for a lot of their struggles to what we call de-silo their data and bring it into a modernized infrastructure where they can really start to make sense out of their data at the scale that they need to for the future.
Okay, great. Of course, we all know that there's also a huge explosion of data. How would you describe the challenge of making sense of that?
Yeah, so explosion of data is absolutely happening really across the private industry and the public sector. It's been a really difficult challenge, honestly, for them to get a hold of all of the data within their holdings. And as that data continues to grow, it's breaking down a lot of those legacy systems, i.e. they just don't have the capacity to handle the explosion in the data they have. And so one of the things we're doing as a scalable, modernized database is bringing the ability for them to scale out their ability to process the data. And then also we introduce things like analytics, AI, and machine learning, where we're going from what we call this legacy dumb database that doesn't really understand much about the data within its holdings to a more modernized construct where your data your database is really starting to give you more of a lens and a view on the data within your holdings. And that's been extremely helpful to folks across the DoD and IC. We've really had a lot of success with our customers with a new architecture that we're calling the Smart Data Fabric, which we'll get into a little bit later on in the talk. But essentially, if you think about your database, you want your database to work for you, and you want it to be able to answer the questions that you have on top of all of the data sets within your holdings.
Okay, yeah, we have been hearing more about data fabrics. What would a smart data fabric architecture look like?
Sure. So to really answer that, we'll start with what is the definition of a data fabric first. And the way we think of a data fabric is essentially it's an architecture approach that will allow agencies, companies, whatever customer to access all of the data sets across their enterprise. So it's eliminating the silo. In the legacy approach, you might have 20 different legacy databases, all that have different data sets and different formats. The data fabric sort of eliminates that. And even Gartner is stating that the enterprise data fabric is the future of data management. And so that's really kind of the first way I would slice what is a smart data fabric. But a smart data fabric is really a step beyond that. And it's providing a modernized architecture that incorporates analytics, NLP, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of those constructs into the underlying data fabric, such that you're getting enrichments and insights and value from the data within your holdings. So you're not only breaking down those silos, but you're also getting those enrichments as well. And so, an example I like to think about within the smart data fabric architecture is a counterterrorism use case. If you think about your data holdings, you might have terrorists, you might have buildings, you might have planes, you might have all sorts of different objects. And there's activities that can occur across those objects, i.e. a terrorist could come in the vicinity of a certain military base or function that you care about, and you want to be tipped and queued to that. Can your siloed database architecture answer that question for you today? And the answer is a flat out no, it cannot. And so in the smart data fabric world, we're really breaking down those barriers that will allow customers to really get that view and lens across all of the data in their holdings.
Okay, interesting. And we also know that modernized systems can have problems communicating with legacy databases, not to mention problems with lineage, provenance, and security. Can you talk a little bit about how a smart data fabric could help fill that gap?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. This is not an overnight kind of change or modernization. And the way we like to work with our customers is to really take the crawl, walk, run approach. You're not going to be running overnight and simply shift your entire organization from a legacy silo over into a smart data fabric. It's going to take you a lot of time and resources. And really, you should be modernizing as it makes sense, right? And quite frankly, there's just so many disparate and complex legacy database systems that retiring them all and modernizing them would be just an extreme cost burden to most organizations. And so really what we sort of teach our customers to do is to augment capability, right? So you may keep that legacy architecture for a time, but you also have a modernized smart data fabric architecture that allows you to pull over certain metadata records about those data that are stored in silos, or you may actually, in some cases, pull over full copies of records. But the key is to pull those records over within the format that they were originated. And the reason I say that is because most organizations spend 70 to 80% of their time or their schedule transforming the records to meet that one size fits all or that one format fits all construct. And at MarkLogic, we simply don't believe in that. We believe in keeping the data in its original structure or format and iteratively enriching that as needed. And so really what that means is bring your data in as is, and as you need to answer more questions, that is when you model the data. And what that allows you to do is ingest and load your data as quickly as possible to start to get value out of that immediately.
Okay, great. Can you tell us more about the multi-model construct? What is that and why is that important?
Sure. So multi-model is not new. It's something that's been around for a little while, but we at MarkLogic have been pushing the edge on it since the beginning. I think a lot of the folks listening to this video will certainly understand or have heard of the NoSQL market before. NoSQL is pretty much, it stands for not SQL or not a relational database. A relational database, if you go back in the day, think of Excel, rows, columns, and you're force fitting all of your data into rows and columns. We don't believe in that. As I kind of open my talk, we believe in diversity of data. Data is complex. It all looks different. And so the NoSQL space was really an answer to, hey, I do not want to force fit data into a structure. Multi-model takes that a step beyond. It says, whatever format you have, whether it's binary, text, JSON, XML, whatever format, we will allow you to ingest that as is, and we'll be able to process that or index that or provide value on top of that as is. That's multi-model. And we've been pushing the edge on that for a while now. It is the underlying construct and architecture to MarkLogic. So, I guess the key points there, you've got to get your data away from a rigid concrete structure, right? That old legacy relational structure into something that is more open and more, has the ability to be molded such that you have the ability via your underlying data platform to get that value out of your data.
Okay, super. Eric, this has been really great. Is there anything more you'd like to tell us about MarkLogic, or where can people go to get more resources about the company?
Yeah, thanks, George. So absolutely agree. This has been great. So, just a few things to finish it out. MarkLogic is, we've been around a while, almost 20 years, in fact. And we started as this, little bitty 20-year-old XML database company. And we've sort of exploded since then into the enterprise space. And, as I discussed with the multi-model database and the smart data fabric, we're really pushing the edge for our customers globally to meet their hardest data problems. We have numerous use cases across the US IC, our intelligence community, and Department of Defense, as well as I said, globally. Best way to get a hold of us is through our website, marklogic.com, or feel free to reach out directly on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to put a team of thought leaders in place and help you with your most challenging and complex data problems.
All right. Well, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to our audience for joining us. We certainly appreciate your participation as well. That concludes our Signal Executive interview. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, George.